Good morning, children. Children, we were discussing about reflection of light. We were discussing about reflection of light. The change of path of light after falling on some object is called reflection of light. Once again I am repeating. The change of path of light after falling on some object is called reflection of light. It is found that reflection of light from a surface always takes place in a well-defined manner, and it takes place in accordance with two simple rules, or you can say laws of reflection. But before proceeding, children, towards the laws of reflection, we will first know some important terms. Okay, we will know what are the related terms which we have to know in order to know the laws of reflection. So, first of all, incident ray, incident ray. What is an incident ray? The ray of light coming towards the mirror is called incident ray. The ray of light coming towards the mirror is called is called incident ray. Now the second is reflected ray. Reflected ray. What is reflected ray? The ray of light which turns back after reflection from the mirror surface is called the reflected ray. Once again I am repeating. The ray of light which turns back after reflection from the mirror surface is called reflected ray. Then the point of incidence, it is that point on the surface of the mirror where the incident ray falls. So, first of all, we will know with the help of diagram. This is a plane mirror. It's a plane mirror, and this is the incident ray. Then after reflection, this is the reflected ray. This point is the point of incidence. This is the plane mirror. Then this is the normal. This angle, it is known as angle of incidence. And this is the angle of reflection. So now let me explain all the terms one by one. Incident ray. See here, the ray of light coming towards the mirror is called incident ray. Then the reflected ray, the ray of light which turns back after reflection. The ray of light after getting reflected from the mirror turns back. It is known as reflected ray. Then the point of incidence. This one is the point of incidence. It is the point on the surface of the mirror where the incident ray falls. It is the point on the mirror on which the incident ray falls. Now normal. This one is the normal. It is a line perpendicular to the surface of the point of incidence, and it is known as the normal at the point of incidence. Now angle of reflection. See children, the angle. See here, this angle is known as angle of incidence. Now this is the angle which is made by the incident ray and the normal. That is the angle formed between the incident ray and the normal is known as angle of incidence. Now angle of reflection. In the same way we can define that angle of reflection is the angle between the normal and the reflected ray is known as angle of reflection. Then the planes. What are the plane of incidence and the plane of reflection? So one by one we will know what is plane of incidence and plane of reflection. Plane of incidence, children, as we supposed to define a line with the help of 2 points. So in the same way, the plane can be defined with the help of 2 lines. We can define the plane. So the plane defined by the incident ray and the normal at the point of incidence is called the plane of incidence. In the same way, we can define the plane of reflection also, that the plane defined by the reflected ray and the normal at the point of incidence is called the plane of reflection. And one more thing children, angle of incidence is denoted by small I. It is denoted by small I, and angle of reflection is denoted by small r. So these are the terms which we have to know in order to know the laws of reflection. So now we will proceed towards the laws of reflection. Laws of reflection. First of all children, you know that to understand the relationship between the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection, we have to perform an activity. We have to know what is the relationship between the angle of incidence and the angle of reflection. So the things required are, first of all, we have to perform an activity to know the relationship between the angle of incidence and angle of reflection. The things required are plane mirror, two cylindrical tubes, are simply made up of cardboard. Then the third thing we need is a torch. And fourth one is a drawing board. These are the things we require to know the relationship between angle of incidence and angle of reflection. What are the relationship between these two? So first of all, we will know the relationship with the help of a diagram. So let me draw the diagram first. This is simply a drawing board. This is a drawing board. And this is a plane mirror. This is the cylindrical tube made up of cardboard, and this is the second cylindrical tube. It is also made up of cardboard. Now, this is the normal, and from here this is a torch. This is the diagram. Now first let me explain the diagram. You have to place a plane mirror vertically upward in upright position. You have to place the plane mirror vertically upright on the whiteboard. This one is the whiteboard. This is the whiteboard, and you have to place the plane mirror in an upright position. Then you have to hold one cylindrical tube in an inclined position. See here, it is placed in an inclined position near to the mirror. After that, we have to direct light from the torch to the tube. We have to light the torch and place in such a way so that the lighted torch passes its light through the tube. After that, we have to place another tube in the same matching angle. See, another tube is placed in the same matching angle, but only in the opposite side. This one is at this side of the mirror, and the another mirror is placed, another tube is placed just opposite to the first tube. After that, we have to adjust the second tube in such a way that the reflected ray get collected from the second tube. And children, you will able to collect the reflected ray provided the second tube is inclined to the same angle. If the second tube is inclined to the same angle, then only this reflected ray can be collected. After getting reflected from the plane mirror, it passes through the second tube, and this one only is the reflected ray which can be collected by keeping or adjusting the second cylindrical tube in the same way as this is inclined to the mirror. In the same way this is also. So children, the light which is reflected from the mirror moves down through the second tube when the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. So on the basis of all these observations, there are two laws of reflection. So on such type of observations, there are two laws of reflection. First law of reflection is that the incident ray the reflected ray and the normal at the point of incidence all lie in the same plane. And the second law of reflection implies that the angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. So children, the laws of reflections are the incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal. The incident ray, the reflected ray and the normal at the point of incidence all lie in the same plane. And the second law implies that the angle of incidence is, this one is the angle of incidence which is formed by incident ray and the normal. This is the angle of incidence, and this one is the angle of reflection which is formed by the reflected ray and the normal. So the second law implies that angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. That means if we denote the angle of incidence with small I and if we denote angle of reflection with small r, then angle of incidence is equal to the angle of reflection. This is the second law of reflection. Okay children.